there, listeners. Are you feeling the weight of the world? Well, you're not alone. The U.S. Surgeon General says nearly 50% of parents are overwhelmed by stress. And guess what? It's affecting us all. Just last year, we heard about an epidemic of loneliness hitting half our population, especially young adults. But there's hope. I'm Scarlett Lewis, founder of the Choose Love movement. We're dedicated to your safety, health, and well-being with proactive mental health strategies. Imagine a life where stress and loneliness are replaced by joy and connection. We've already reached millions with essential life skills to prevent violence, substance abuse, and mental illness. Want to join this life-changing movement? It's easy. Visit chooselovemovement.org today. Become a member, spread the word, and access our free resources. Together, we can create a loving, supportive community. Remember, all the nurturing, healing love you give comes back to you tenfold. Thank you for choosing love.
I choose love. I choose love.
Hey, everybody. It's so great for you to tune in to Choose Love. Today, I'm honored to welcome a truly inspiring voice to the podcast, David Melville, author of the heartfelt and transformative book, The 5 Things. David's work dives deep into the essential truths we often overlook until it's too late. Truths about love, life, forgiveness, and the things we wish we had said or done before time runs out. Based on his powerful personal journey, David's message is simple yet profound. There are 5 things we all need to say to the people we love before it's too late. Whether you're facing grief, supporting someone through loss, or just wanting to live more meaningfully, David's wisdom helps us reconnect with our deepest values and the people who matter most to us. David is not just a writer. He's a guide through the emotional landscape of life's most tender moments. And today, we get to explore how his message interacts with choosing love, emotional courage, and the healing power of presence. Welcome to the Choose Love podcast, David.
Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate speaking to all of your folks.
Absolutely. Well, we love having you here, and we are all so curious. I was going to say fan base, but our members, this is a movement that we created together, because who cares more than we do about positive change? And we're hungry for knowledge and curious about how to be the best version of ourselves. And I think what we're going to talk about today, David, is living life with the fewest regrets possible.
Amen.
Nobody ever wants to live with regret. They're so painful, and especially get to the end of your life with any regrets or lose somebody. In fact, I just have one of my best friends since I was 4. Her mom was on life support. She had a massive stroke. It was out of the blue. She's very healthy. And she called me crying, and she said, gosh, the last thing that I said to her, we were in a fight, and I haven't spoken to her in 2 months, and I didn't want to speak to her. And she said, I feel so bad. And nobody wants to end up in that situation, live with that anger and regret and feeling of frustration. It's somebody that we actually love. So you have written a book that helps us figure out how not to do that.
Yeah. Yes. And I want to start by giving a shout out to my Aunt Isa, who lived to be 90, and she passed recently. And the reason I shout out to her is I gave this talk at a Kiwanis meeting a while ago. And at the end of the talk, the gentleman raised his hand and said, this is really good stuff. Good stuff. But I'm waiting for the but. Have you thought of doing this for high school kids? And I'm like, no, I hadn't, but I will. It's a great idea. But what he was saying, if I can interpret what he was saying, is because we're all set. We kind of know who we are, and you got to get to us earlier. So the reason I dedicate everything I do to Isa, my aunt, is that she lived to be 90, and her last decade, in her words, was her best. And it was her best because of the five things, not my book, because of the principles behind the five things. In fact, she was a collaborator. We would meet through all of or most of the pandemic. We would meet. She's in Holland, and we would meet a group of us from Southern Maine. We would call in and we would talk about the gurus, Ernest Holmes, Wayne Dyer, Rita, MLK, Sri Kumar Rao, any, Gabrielle Bernstein, anybody. Every week we would have somebody as the guru of the week, and so what occurred to me is that she said her best decade was her last because of those conversations, because she really started to take control and manage her thinking. And as you will relate to, replace thoughts of bitterness, replace thoughts of her past, because she had a pretty rough go. She was with her abandoned as a young daughter, a young child with her sister around World War II, and then she had a bout with alcoholism. So she had a lot to be upset about. But she decided in her last decade that she was going to manage her own thinking, and it completely changed her experience. So this everything I do goes to Isa, and as a collaborator, but also as a mentor and an inspiration.
Oh, that's beautiful. And so between 80 and 90, those were the best years of her life. And I certainly love hearing that. I know that everybody that's listening
Yeah.
is hearing that too. Like, that is very hopeful. And, this realization that everything painful and most of our hurts occurred in the past, right?
Right.
Is lives in our head, only our head.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't live in the head of the person that hurt us. It's only in our head. And
Mhm.
so we almost self-flagellate ourselves with these memories. And, in our defense, our brain does focus more on negative memories than it does
Right.
positive ones, because it wants to make sure we don't duplicate that
Right.
hurtful time. But at the same time, pulling up those memories and then thinking about them actually has the same impact negatively on
Yeah.
our body as it had when the occurrence was happening. Our body doesn't know that what we're thinking about isn't happening now.
Right.
So it doesn't serve you in any way. And it's really important to face, accept, and move through, harvest the gifts, as Dr. David Gruder says. And so
Hmm.
that's something that I just learned. I love that saying: harvest the gifts of pain, and
Hmm.
leave the situation, and don't allow that person that hurt you in the past to have any control.
Right.
That is really why, and the outcome that I received of forgiving Adam Lanza, the man that murdered my
Right.
son.
Right.
I said, I don't want to be another victim of him. And I saw that I easily could be. I saw a whole bunch of other people that were alive and running around. I didn't want to model that for my son. I wanted him to have freedom from pain. And so that was forgiveness. And you talk a lot about forgiveness in your book.
Yes. A couple things you spurred while you were talking is, but please don't wait until you're 80 to start to manage your thinking, everybody. Don't wait till then. Yes, I talk about forgiveness as a way of reconciling today with then. Um, I started this writing after a piece of research kind of blew my mind. It was a study of the National Science Foundation did a study of thought and determined that we have somewhere between 15,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day. It's like, okay, that's good. A lot of thinking going on. But the two conclusions, one of them was a eyebrow raiser, and the other one was a holy smokes, you got to be kidding me conclusion. The eyebrow raiser was that 95% of our thoughts are repeats, just going down the same neural pathways, repeating, repeating, repeating. And 95 seems high, but it makes sense to me that things remind us of what we know. Things remind us of this or that, and we put things in good buckets and bad buckets. And so it's how we create order of our experience. But what we want to do is make sure that um, our patterns of thought don't become ruts. So that was a good takeaway from the study. But the real the holy smokes, you got to be kidding me conclusion that the National Science Foundation came up with was that 80% of our thoughts are negative, fear-based, lack, greed, anxiety, worry, guilt, anger, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I speak to a group, I ask, does 80 seem high to people? And to a lot of people, it doesn't seem high. I'm like, oh my gosh. And to me, it seems high. And who knows whether they nailed it in their research or not. Maybe it's 70%, maybe it's 65%, maybe it's 85%. It really depends on the person. But whatever the real number is, it represents a huge opportunity if you can chip away at that 80% or whatever the number is, or better yet, flip the ratio. And you do that by replacing thoughts, by paying attention to your attention, by being present and not caught up in what was then, or being caught up in what is next, but being caught up in what is now. I think the first words in my book are there is and will always be only one question. Well, that's a big beginning. And the question is, what now? And I'll tell you, Scarlett, the part of nurturing, healing love that really, really caught my attention just stayed with me, was you recalling the day, and a social worker came to you and was there to console you and told you, you just need to understand this. This will never get better. And you made a decision, a conscious decision. You say, no, I am not going to live my life like this. And you made it immediately. So that was presence, that was gut, that was love based, and to think. And it's probably the common reaction. Not most people it would just disappear. But for you to turn that event into, I forget the exact numbers. Oh, I remember one number, talking to 3 million children about replacing angry thoughts. And I remember the number, there were 50 states, I forget how many countries, but to turn what most moms and dads would say is the most horrific of circumstances and turn it into something so beautiful is really a tribute to presence. But for you to say, what now? What am I going to do with this? So you really are. In fact, you touch on all 5 things in a big way. So that's why I love being here. I love talking about your story. But yeah,
David, I touch on them and we teach them. And actually, I kind of want to do a lesson with you for high schoolers, if you want to partner on that, because even though
yeah,
I touch on them, I live this, I breathe this, I do try to choose love. And then to my audience, I go, but I don't always do it. But don't tell anybody, because I'm the choose love lady when I go to
right,
I'm not
right,
perfect. But I'm still on the journey. I had somebody come up to me after a talk just last week, and he said, I was watching you as you were talking about forgiveness, and you really forgive. Like, I was looking for a crack. I was looking for, are you
yeah,
making this up?
yeah,
You really, really in this? And he goes, no, I could tell, like, you exude that you really, really forgave Adam. And, like, if you can do it, I can do it, but I'm much further back on the path. And I said, I am walking shoulder to shoulder with everyone,
right,
because
right,
I did it. And like my personalized license plate came back, chose love. And I was like, what am I going to do with that? And
yeah,
I realized, oh no, just because I did it yesterday,
mm-hmm.
I have like a whole
If, mm-hmm.
litany of opportunities today to do it. And it doesn't mean that I will. And I have, things with my family, and family is the hardest to forgive.
Yep.
That I'm
Yep.
still working on. And so I said, no, I'm walking shoulder to shoulder. And he said, you know what, that helps me even more than you getting up there and saying, that you did, and me realizing it. The fact that you're walking along the journey too, and you're still struggling with certain forgivenesses. And,
Mhm.
and I think that that's true, but I also think that that needs to be the focus, because it is so powerful. It's so empowering. Like I think our society gives us the messaging that and our brain too, by the way, fear
Mhm.
cells, we're focused on fear. We have all these movie stars who supposedly are, anti-gun, but there's all sorts of that. And it's like anger, hatred, revenge, that's the powerful thing. That's what we have to
Yeah.
do to conquer. But in reality, love is the most powerful response that we can have. And it activates the reward centers in our brain. It makes us feel good. It's when we're in
Yes.
control. When we're reacting in that anger, hatred, and revenge, we're coming from our fear center, and we're not in control.
Yeah.
The other person is, by the way. And so this is the thing that I just love being able to teach the kids, even inmates, because they don't know this. And
Mhm.
and when they know that love is a choice for everybody, I just love watching this awareness come to light in their eyes. And it's kind of like, oh my God, I had a choice.
Yeah.
Similar to me, I had a choice when it was actually a mom who had lost her
Yeah.
only son 20 years prior. And I'm
Yikes.
like, ooh, okay. Like, if I'm not going to live like that, so it's going to be my choices that I make today
Right.
that are going to
Yep.
determine my future. It's all on me. And taking that personal responsibility may seem scary, but
Yep.
it's the way to move forward with the fewest regrets.
Yes. And you touched on um you touched on this thought will come right rushing back into my head. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between a actual event and an event relived. And sometimes for our own reasons, we relive an event and we make it better slash worse. We make it more exciting, more dramatic. So the real takeaway, if we believe that our subconscious is driving what's going on, is to when something happens, let that be the only time. And thoughts will always come rushing in, but what do we do that with them? But if you
So
think,
fascinating. Like my mom thinks rumination is good. She's
yeah,
like, it's good that I'm pulling these things up that happened 10 years, 30 years ago, because I'm still working through them. And I just want to talk to you about it because I'm still working through them. And I'm thinking, well, you know, are you the fact that you're still talking about them kind of shows that you're not working through them, and you get that hit of adrenaline, that
yep,
anger, like I'm right,
yep,
they're wrong, and that type of thing. And I guess that's somewhat validating, but at the same time, it is that, negative thought process over and over that's only
right,
hurting you and not them.
right, yeah. You're every thought you have, every word you speak, every word you write, every action you take is programming your subconscious. And it's sort of like, yeah, well, okay, that's interesting. So what? Big deal. Who cares? And until you realize that your subconscious is constantly seeking out information, perspectives, circumstances, people, and events that are consistent with what you program. So, if that study was anywhere near correct, that it's 80% negative, then this is huge opportunity. But so everybody has dark thoughts. Everybody has unuseful thoughts. Everybody has thoughts that are not helpful in any way. Um, everybody. So the question is, when they come, what do you do? And the more important question is, what is the majority of your thinking? And if it's 80% negative, 80% fear-based, or anywhere even close, then what you see is what you're going to get more of. But if
That's
you
your reality. You're
conscious,
creating your reality through your
yeah,
thoughts.
exactly. But if you make the decision to choose, and sometimes, it's you also touched on another thing is like, oh, so you're the expert, you're the choose love lady, and oh, David, you get these are the five things. So how do you do it? Well, hey, I ain't no preacher. First of all, I don't talk about what's right. I don't talk about what's wrong. I try to elucidate what's useful. But, when I talk about gratitude, I'm not suggesting, oh gosh, you need to count your blessings because it's the right thing to do. No, I'm saying what you want to do for your reasons is change your frequency. Become somebody new, become somebody different, change your frequency, not do the right thing. So I'm like you, I'm walking shoulder to shoulder. I'm not the one saying that I've got this all figured out. In fact, the why of writing this book, as selfish as this sounds, is I kind of wrote it for me because I've always been a personal growth or personal awareness junkie. And I read all these things and I'm like, well, I need to organize all of this and put my own voice to it. Um,
And you
uh,
know what? That's the same reason that I started the Choose Love movement. It was my healing journey that I'm just sharing with other people because it works.
yeah.
And so I'm wondering, people are wondering, what are the five things? And, how can we implement them in our lives? Like I kind of, along with the audience, I want to know what the five things are. And then I want to know if I'm actually doing them and how I can be doing them better.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that intro. When creating this short 90-page book, I wanted it to be conversational. I wanted it to be easy to read, but I also wanted it to be useful. So to answer your question, for each of the five things, I've included actionables, which are things you can do, things you can try, things you can experiment, rather than just blah, blah, blah. This is what David heard. What I want to do is create actionables, things you can do. Um, and and I want it to be interactive. If I have actionables that seem to work for me and work for other people, but other people out there who have actionables, I want to hear what works for you so I can share with the group.
And let me say, like, one of my favorite emails is yours that comes in. And I encourage everybody that's listening to sign up to the five things email that you do, because you and I love the fact that you ask your audience, hey, send in ideas. What have you heard? What resonates with you? And it's kind of like it's a group sharing, and you share
Yeah,
the things that you love that you found out, and other people share, I've shared with you.
yeah.
And so I encourage everybody to sign up for that, because that's a really good resource.
Thank you. Thank you. And back to my Aunt Isa, I got to keep coming back to her. Her Isa is ISA, which is an acronym for the Institute for Shared Awareness. In other words, this is not one way, this is shared awareness. So I do want to hear back from folks. And thank you for plugging the newsletter. And it really is the best material I get is from people on that list who say, hey, this is what happened to me, or hey, have you thought of this, or make a comment. So yeah, it's sharing is what it's all about, and me again learning as much as anybody. It's certainly not one way. So I'll quickly mention the five things, and maybe an actionable for one or two of them. But the first one is to change your mind. And when I say change your mind, the initial reaction is, whoa, 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 buddy, who are you telling us we need to change our mind? It's like, no, no, no. I'm not asking anybody to change, their ideology or their position. What I'm saying is change your mind on your terms for your benefit when it makes sense. Things like this is a great story I love to tell of John and Matt, who worked at a Sappy Paper in Southern Maine, which is Southern Maine's answer to Dunder Mifflin. They were working, they're working at a paper company, and they noticed a pattern of thought that was very predictable and was aligned with Monday morning. And it's most will recognize this. It's like, how you doing? Pretty good for a Monday. And they got together and they said, you know what? We're creating this. And these were outside salespeople, so they're talking to people in Indianapolis and San Diego. Same thing. How you doing? Pretty good for a Monday. I'm like, So the two of them decided that they were going to change Mondays for them. And they did. And they were they didn't, hire clowns or, get free coffee, and they just changed their attitude, they changed their mind about Mondays. So they would walk a little bit taller. They would, high five each other. They would, on Saturday, text the other one and say, only 2 more days till our next Monday. They kind of took it to the extreme, but it worked. It really worked for them
Yeah.
and for the whole sales floor.
Mhm.
It just kind of rubbed off and caught. And so they became known in, again, Indianapolis and San Diego and all of the accounts across the country as, Monday John and Monday Matt. But it was just a simple decision, changing of the mind to not look at Mondays the way they always have. So it was mindset only, nothing else. So
Yeah.
um,
So change your mind, be flexible and flowing. We have this tendency to bodyguard ourselves, right?
yeah,
And defend ourselves. And that's the way our brain is wired, but
yeah,
let that go. Have the courage to be vulnerable
yeah,
and listen to somebody else's opinion. We've become so intolerant of that. And the reason that you can't listen to somebody else, by the way, is because of fear. Fear
yep,
puts blinders on you. It makes you less tolerant of another's opinions, and it makes you just look for those that agree with you. That is not conducive to learning and growth. And
right,
and so having that being able to listen and go, oh wait, they have a point. This is what I say: the 10% rule, which is it's not mine, but I read this somewhere. Think that when you're listening to somebody that is saying something that you don't agree with, 10% of what they're saying is right. So look for that 10%. I had to use
right,
this a lot with my dad, who has different political views than my son. And I'm like, look for the 10% that is
yeah,
right, because our brains will look for what is wrong, will look to be offended. How many people
yeah,
do you know that do that? But if you actually focus your attention is the purest form of love, on the 10% that's right, you'll find it.
yep, yep, yep,
And then you'll learn and grow, and you'll be a better
yep.
person after the conversation and not angry.
I choose love.
Hey there, listeners. Are you feeling the weight of the world? Well, you're not alone. The U.S. Surgeon General says nearly 50% of parents are overwhelmed by stress. And guess what? It's affecting us all. Just last year, we heard about an epidemic of loneliness hitting half our population, especially young adults. But there's hope. I'm Scarlett Lewis, founder of the Choose Love movement. We're dedicated to your safety, health, and well-being with proactive mental health strategies. Imagine a life where stress and loneliness are replaced by joy and connection. We've already reached millions with essential life skills to prevent violence, substance abuse, and mental illness. Want to join this life-changing movement? It's easy. Visit chooselovemovement.org today. Become a member, spread the word, and access our free resources. Together, we can create a loving, supportive community. Remember, all the nurturing, healing love you give comes back to you tenfold. Thank you for choosing love.
I choose love. I choose
Right. I love it. One of my favorite expressions to help me deal with folk is, everyone is operating at their current awareness. In other words, whatever anyone is doing, they're doing based on their history and what they know. And this is the only thing they could do at this moment in this time. It's the only thing they could do. But I like to add that, rather than just kind of take them off the hook, like, oh, well, that they think that way because they don't know any better. No, 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 no. It's because this is what they know, and exactly, I'm going to use your 10% there's got to be at least 10%. I have a friend of mine where we have disagreements, and I said, I just want you to know we agree on way more than we disagree
That's right.
on.
That's right.
We may have different solutions and ways to get there, but we agree on a whole lot more. And it kind of stopped him for the first time since I've known him. And he said, "Yeah, you're probably right." And so I guess I've moved from 10% to 50 something percent.
No, but it's so true. Like there was a survey, and I can't remember who did the survey, but it was the values of both Democrats and Republicans, and 9 out of 10 were exactly the same.
Amazing.
The 10 that the one that was different on either side, I think Democrats view themselves as more compassionate, and then Republicans say respect is very important to them. So that was the only difference. They were the same. It's like fear. By the way, if you know, fear is the only thing that is keeping us apart. And
Yes.
and we're
Yes.
allowing it to, and we have
Yeah.
a choice to not, a choice to choose love in this. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So number one is change your mind. I totally agree. That's awesome.
Yeah. Number two is pay attention to your attention, which I know which we've kind of talked about. But
Think about what you think about.
the takeaway is that to that which you give your attention, you breathe life. Whatever it is, whatever you're giving your attention to, you're making it bigger. You're making it bigger for yourself.
Yes.
You're making it bigger for the people around you.
Yes.
So what is it that you're going to give your attention to? And if you start to do the inventory on, well, where is my attention going? You start to live in solutions rather than problems, because it's so easy to live in the problem, detest the problem, talk about the problem. But when you shift your attention to, well, what's the solution? Which is, I mean, you're the poster person for this. What's, let's live in the solution, which is, a love-based culture. I have, as you know, I deal in extreme examples to make my point, of a character who lived in the solution. This was a friend of mine who I met I just met him. He's a friend now, but I met him in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Tom Pritz, and you can look him up, Google him, get his story. It's an amazing story. Tom Pritz was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in December. And, for most of us who have heard that phrase, it's akin to a death sentence. But Tom had never heard the phrase before. He's like, "Wait, what, doc? What?" The doc was pretty frank with him. And Tom said, I need to make changes because this doesn't sound good to me. And so talk about paying attention to your attention. He decided to play militant gatekeeper to what he would allow in his head. And he completely changed what he would allow. Now, you and I both know you can't stop, bad thoughts from entering. And he said, "Oh, I don't wear a halo. I've been over to the dark side many times." But the majority of I would have a dark thought, and I would replace it. I would play militant gatekeeper to what I was thinking about and where my attention was. And the reason I share this story is Tom Pritz was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in December of 2004. And so this is 20 something years later. And I called Tom and he says, "Oh, I know why you're calling. You're going to talk about me again. You want to make sure I'm still kicking, right?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I want to know how you're doing." And he's doing great. And so the question is, why wait for the diagnosis? When
Right.
if you decide to play militant gatekeeper, you can be on proactive rather than reactive.
That's so huge. And you know what I do when those thoughts come in, those intrusive thoughts, I say stop, and I literally hold my hand up. Stop.
Yeah.
And I immediately switch. Like if it's a memory, you're driving. I don't know. Sometimes it's when you're bored, I guess. And,
Yep.
like
Yep.
a memory will appear like this, and it's painful, and you made a mistake. And,
Yep.
I just go stop, and I switch my memories, and I pull up a positive memory, and I have a huge bank of positive memories.
Yep.
And I savor that memory. I turn it over, I take it out, I look at it, I remember, I try to think of some little detail that I don't normally think about, or a new insight in that memory, and it's gone.
Yeah.
it's really important that we do that. And and the thing is, like, there's a little bit of, with those negative memories, you get that hit of adrenaline, you get that kind of,
Yep.
ooh, that energized feeling, that feeling of I'm right, they're wrong, or those aren't the memories that I usually pull up, the negative memories. It's usually the ones where I'm wrong, I've made a mistake.
Yep.
So just really, really important. Just stop. And I love that story about Tom. Wow, because our thoughts directly relate, every single one, that impacts every single cell in our body and leads us towards languishing or flourishing. Your health depends on your thought process. And yes, you do have control over your thoughts. And as you say, you're still going to have the negative, dark thoughts. We all have them, and that's okay. Acceptance, but you can choose.
Yeah. As
Amazing.
Ernest Holmes says, if we don't control our thoughts will control us. Now, as you said, well, you can't control every thought, but I love this idea of physically putting your hand up. Not today, sorry. Find the exit, and then you replace the thought. And as long as the majority, the balance, of the nature of your thinking is moving in the right direction, a whole lot of other things are going to as well.
I think I do that because I think about that initial experience with that woman that was there, and my whole being was so repelled by the thought, like my life flashed before my eyes in thinking that's how my life would be, and that's what I would be modeling for my son, and I just went like this. And so now when it happens, I just do this.
Right. And she was trying to help you. She was doing everything in her power to help you.
But she did help me, right?
Right.
She was the catalyst for me going, okay, no one's going to put a road map in front of my face. This was days after. I'm going to have to do it myself, and it's going to be my choices right now. I mean, thank God for her.
Yes.
Because it got me going on my own. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Okay, so we've got 1 and 2. What's 3?
Oh, 3 is radical acceptance. And of course, like I said, you fall under all 5. I could tell a Scarlett Lewis story about all 5 things, but in the book, I have you listed under radical acceptance, because it was like, this isn't something you would choose. This isn't something you would favor, but this is a what now kind of moment. It's like, in radical acceptance, the takeaway is, the most common mistake we make is thinking that things should be different than they are. Now, when I say that, it's like, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure things should be different. Most people will have that. But they are what they are. They is what they is. And the question is, what now? This is the huge paradox. In order to be an agent for change, you have to accept what is. And you're the poster person for that story. This is what is. And going into not just all the Adam Lanza's head. This is what is. Now what? And we can
all the hurt and pain that he went through. And I think about, if he had had radical acceptance, so many bad things happened to him. He had so much hurt and pain, but he didn't know how to take that pain and be transformed by it. So he was taken down by it, and he decided to take out other people. And that's why this is so important to teach in schools, by the way. Like, you may think, oh, I've got all this and my kids are good, but there are other kids in the classroom with your kids that aren't getting it at home. And you want to make sure that they do, because you never know if, like there's a saying that's really, that I love. If the child does not feel the warmth of the village, they might come back and burn it down. That is the freaking proverb. And
so back to your earlier comment, I would love to collaborate on something for high school students, and maybe just add a pinch of, I was reading a little bit about the Hollow movement. Is it like, hey buddy, hey sister, you're not alone. You're all part of this. You're not alone at all.
You're not alone. You're not alone. And Barbara Fredrickson's, she's the positive psychology researcher. She wrote an incredible book, Positivity. You can't read that book enough times, but she also wrote a book called Love 2.0. And in that, she talks about how love is a chemical wash over our brain. And like anger, it lasts about 90 seconds. So we get love in spurts. And you can have that same spurt that a couple having an anniversary dinner after 35 years of marriage gets walking through the checkout line with effort, with courage, by engaging that person on the other side of the checkout counter, looking into their eyes, because we're designed as humans to look into each other's eyes. We have mirror neurons. That's one of the reasons why I think this cell phone is so damaging, and making a connection. Hey, oh my gosh, you buy raw milk too? Yeah, so do I. And it's people say it's bad, but it's not. Sharing a laugh, you know, that's will start those serving, asking your neighbor, hey, I noticed that your grass is getting really long. Do you need somebody to mow it? Or just picking up their trash in their front yard. Somebody did that for me, you know, after Jesse died, because one of my garbage bags had broken open, and it didn't take that long, but it was so kind, very kind. And, but that's a connection though, that when you help other people, you help and heal yourself. And that alone is that compassion piece. I think that if people understood that, and here's the kicker, you can't do it to get something for yourself, or you get no benefit. But if you truly are out there serving and helping other people, you help and heal yourself. Can you imagine a generation that understands that and lives that way? That's the world I want to live in.
I love listening to you talk. Love it. Isa would take every day, like a checkout line. She said every time I'd go to a supermarket, first of all, I would marvel at how did this all come together, from the produce from all parts of the world. And then she would get the checkout, and she would always make a point of giving a compliment. But it had to be authentic. It had to be genuine, and she wasn't looking for anything in return. But I want to compliment the people who were making all this happen. And she would do it. And sometimes it would, you know, she'd have to dig deep to come up with a genuine compliment, but she would do it. I love the idea of transforming just everyday experiences into an opportunity to seed the world with love.
Yes. Yeah. Give love and you receive love. That's the thing, you know, there's no lack of love. And we're love generators. We come from love. It's already there. It's just setting the intention for it. And then it's like a drop in the ocean. You never run out. You always have enough. We live in an abundance of love, which is so amazing. Okay. So that's 3.
Okay. Quick note, 4 and 5. 4 is the one that, you know, when I introduce it, you know, it sounds a little bit soft, and I'm like, oh, no. You don't understand. The 4th one is infuse the day with gratitude. And
that started.
Yeah. We all know about gratitude. Yeah, but do you? What can you, wherever you are, whether you're an 80%er or a 20%er, you know, what can you do to exercise your gratitude muscle? What can you do? Because when you are feeling, again, back to authenticity, when you are feeling genuine gratitude, you can't feel depressed. You can't feel angry. You can't feel anything but, again, being on the gratitude frequency if it's genuine. So what I will do in the course of a day, this is an actionable. I will get a little bit of water. And I will recognize water for what it is. I will say, this is the foundation of life. This is what good health tastes like. And I will just go on. And I'm talking myself into it, but I believe it and I know it. I've been in a drought where it got pretty darn ugly with the municipalities and who gets the water and how do you, et cetera. But if you think about it, how do we start our day? We brush, we flush, we fill up the coffee machine, we fill up the
so much water.
Yeah, we fill up the humidifier, and then what? We take a shower, and this is every day. And so, it's you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not into telling people what's right and what's wrong, but a little bit of guilt trip isn't too bad. Out of 8 billion, there are 2 billion people on the planet who can't get fresh water. So when we who can have it whenever we want, at whatever temperature we want, to
People
make a big deal about it. It's like,
people
you
walk
know,
hours to get water, and we turn on a tap and
yeah.
we flush a toilet. How many people don't have toilet? But I grew up that way. I would come downstairs and my mom would be like in awe. Can you believe that we can just turn on a tap and have water? This is every morning, right? And did you flush the toilet this morning? We flushed the toilet. So anyway, I'm laughing to myself, David, and I just have to share my thoughts, because you can really go deep into this gratitude. There are many levels. You're drinking out of a plastic bottle, and I'm going, well, that's that. There are microplastics in that. You gotta drink out. You could glass, and then you have these special types of water and all of this. But water in general, that's where my mind was going.
Yeah.
Water. Yeah, exactly. You have, we live in such abundance. I want to share that I went to India and I taught Choose Love in the schools in the slums. And I thought I was going to feel sorry for them,
Wow.
really, and I went there and I'm looking around, and towards the end of the trip, they brought us, to where they lived and everything. And I got to tell you, they had nothing. They had sticks that they'd found and little scraps of paper and like not tarps, not tents, not cooking, like nothing. They cooked on a communal fire in the middle of,
Wow.
maybe an abandoned lot. And a lot of their food they waited in lines for. And they would show up at school happy, big smiles, in clothes. I
Wow.
have no idea how they did it. Having parents that really needed them to work instead
Yeah.
of go to school so that they could earn money to live and eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yet they felt so grateful and so, all of them, happy. And I made a comment recently, actually, because I've been thinking about this, to the director of that chain of schools, Steiner Schools. I said, I didn't see any mental illness. I didn't see any anxiety in any of these kids. And you would think those are the kids that should be anxious.
If they only knew.
They don't know where their next meal is coming from, right?
Yeah.
But she said it's true. It's true, because they're grateful, and positive action is the opposite of anxiety. They're busy. And I started thinking of anxiety as kind of a disease of the dis-ease of luxury, because it does live in the mind, and it is fear of the future. Yet if you are grounded in the moment and you see the abundance that we have, and remind yourself that in the moment you're safe. Now, I have had bouts of anxiety, so I understand how painful it is. I'm not taking away from anybody that's listening that feels anxiety.
Of course.
But it was incredible to me that these kids had none. And that was confirmed by the director of the school. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's exercising the gratitude muscle. These kids, they're grateful for what they have.
Right. And they have
If we can be grateful for water, as long as we're genuine about it. We can be grateful for driving a car or the ability to walk. We can choose whatever we want to be grateful for, as long as but the low hanging fruit is the everyday things that we see. I like to tell the story of John D. Rockefeller, who at the time was the richest man in the world. I got something on my feed from Warren Buffett that said, 5% of earners in this country live better than John D. Rockefeller did. I'm like, wait, what? They didn't say they were happier. They say they live better. And when you look at the advancements we've made in medicine and transportation and entertainment and communication, et cetera, it's like, yeah, we've got a lot of low hanging fruit, a lot of things we can look at. The pandemic invented or propelled Zoom to where it is today. Little things that I can be here talking to you is an amazing miracle. It really is. So John Rockefeller goes to a football game. This is a completely made up story, by the way. I'm making this up.
Okay.
This probably didn't happen. He wants to watch a football game, but he can't watch one on TV because it hasn't been invented yet. So he goes to the football game, and the referees are congregating, talking about a play that happened. And he turns to his buddy in the stands and he says, "Hey, what happened?" And his buddy says, "I don't know." So what do John and his buddy do? They wait for the next play. I mean, I suppose they could turn and ask somebody else, but they just wait for the next play. But the bottom 5% of earners, they watch the replay and the slow mo and the 70-inch screen, and they watch and that they hear analysis on top of analysis. They can probably turn into a podcast and get the whole breakdown of the play. There is so much, and so that's kind of a silly story. But if you take that kind of advancement that we've had through every, education, communication, transportation, medicine, et cetera, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, things that you can be extremely grateful for as long as you're genuine and not, again, not to count your blessings. Sure, you got a roof over your head and arms and legs, but no, it's not because it's the right thing to do, because it changes your frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the research, it actually fortifies you, I say,
Yeah,
from the inside out to better be able to handle adversity with greater strength and grace.
yeah,
And that is a conscious practice of gratitude. I mean, yes, we all go through the day and we're grateful for uh maybe this or that, but I'm saying like being consciously grateful for your cup of coffee every morning,
yeah,
thinking about it, thinking, and then also strengthening your ability to, when you're having those lower energy negative thoughts, to be able to use gratitude to shift the focus of your lens, because as you said, you can't think of two thoughts at once. And
right.
so choose, what do you want to
Yeah,
do? Do you want to continue to think in a lower energy and negative way? And by the way,
yeah,
fear is not, it's not, I mean, it keeps us alive, right? And it has a purpose. It means you care. So I'm not saying that fear is bad. I'm not saying that any emotion that we feel is bad. In fact, there's new research called emodiversity that says that the more emotions that we feel every day and the more varied, the more mentally healthy we are. Like
yes,
whatever we're feeling, like just be present with it and get curious. But you don't have to stay in it. You can
yeah,
move beyond it. And using gratitude is so powerful. You're right. Like people go, well, gratitude, I know about gratitude, but do you practice it?
right,
Do
right.
you actually use it to shift those thoughts? Are you consciously grateful every day when you wake up? Before you open your eyes, what are you thinking of? The list of things you have to do or your gratitudes? You
Right.
woke up again this morning. This is another thing my mom always says. You woke up, but somebody else didn't. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's a gratitude right away. Okay.
And I know that you know the how Wayne Dyer started every day, 2 feet on the floor, and he would just say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Not for anything in particular, or not. He was just starting his day like that. He wasn't having to conjure up, okay, what is it that I'm grateful for? No, it was just thank you, thank you, thank you. And maybe next podcast we'll talk about the power of the spoken word as opposed to the idle thought or the passing thought. But
Oh, I'd love
um,
to. Yeah.
yeah.
So the fifth thing, because
The
we're
fifth, the
moving.
fifth thing is to be present. And as soon as I say be present, kind of the same reaction I imagine to gratitude is like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We all know about Eckhart Tolle. We know
Yeah,
about presence.
right.
We all know about the power of now. We all know that. And you're probably going to talk about mindfulness. You're probably going to talk about breathing. Probably going to weave meditation in there. And the answer is yes, yes, yes. But the most benefit that you get from practicing presence is learning how to hear that still small voice of intuition that is never wrong. And Becky Pride, who looked over my book, she goes, "No, no, no, no. I've had intuition that was wrong." I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you, but how much of your ego was in the conversation and how much was somebody else's opinion in the conversation? But when you learn how to
Hmm.
hear that still small voice. That is your prime guidance system. It is the chief benefit of presence. And the way to hear that still small voice is to turn down the noise on everything else.
So good. I call that still small voice the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And you're right, it always knows, and it's quietly whispering, and it's telling you the truth. It's the truth.
Yes.
And I cannot tell you, unfortunately, how many times in very like my most major decisions in my life, I've heard it and
Yeah.
I talked it down. I have said, yes, but what if this, what if that, and what, you know what? And it's
Yep.
it's
Yep.
the easiest choice right now, but I'm already so far into it. But
Right.
I don't want to hurt their feelings, you
Yeah.
know, like so many things. And every time I've gone against it, David, it's been disastrous. And I have to forgive myself because my voice, that small still voice, my Holy Spirit is what I call it, was telling me. But then I will say, after one particularly disastrous talking down of that and not going with that guidance and advice, I had a friend that said, well, let's check back in with your Holy Spirit to see what it says. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm ashamed. I didn't follow it, and it knew, and like, look what I've done. And they said, no, let's just go back and check in. And
Yeah.
what we did, it said, there was no judgment. And in fact, it said it's going to be okay. And you know, it was. And so there is no shame. There is no judgment. We put that on ourselves. It's just getting back up, dusting ourselves off, but learning from the mistake. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to really be present and listen to that voice, because as you said, it knows.
Yes.
I relate so closely with that. This has been an incredible conversation. I really appreciate you. You're right. We could go on. I wish that we had 2 hour. We should be like Joe Rogan and have like a
3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could definitely fill it up. This is so wonderful. I really appreciate you. I think everybody should run out and get your book, The 5 Things.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely go to the website. What is your website?
Sharing5things.com.
Sharing5things.com. Sign up for the newsletter, because it's one of
Yes.
my favorite things that comes into my inbox every day. And just, do you have any last words of wisdom for the audience?
I would say every moment is a chance to start over, start anew, that we're all learning, but every moment is a chance to ask yourself the question, what now? Like you were asking your Holy Spirit, okay, all right, I didn't listen to you, but what now?
Yeah.
And if you really are serious about asking the question, what now, and serious about listening for the answer, you've got you've got a whole ton of fun ahead of you. It's not all fun, but it doesn't have to all be fun. But on balance, it'll be great.
Well, it definitely is all a learning experience.
Yes.
And there's a possibility, and you talk a lot about forgiveness, of letting all that other stuff go.
Yeah.
So don't let it color your present and your future. Just let it go so you can become the best version of yourself with no regrets.
And finally, I'll say there are 5 things, but I'm already, and the reason I call them things for a very specific reason. I didn't want them to be principles or laws, or, I wanted them to be kind of things, because I want to always be able to say, oh, and another thing. And there are other things. And if you come up with one, Scarlett, I want to hear about another thing. I've identified, the 6th thing is authenticity. I haven't figured out how to phrase it, but to be authentic. Very critical. And the 7th thing is to carry a sense of humor. Don't make it all so serious. So, but there are 8, 9, 10. There are a whole lot of other things. So I thank you for inviting people to get the newsletter, and I want to hear from them. What's the next thing? And Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, and as Jesse said, have a lot of fun, right? That was the last message that he left to his big brother. And that's, I've had a lot of fun during this podcast. I hope our listeners have too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David Melville, author of The 5 Things. We appreciate you so much. And we will talk again. Thanks to our listeners for listening. Please share this podcast with somebody that you think could benefit from it. That's an act of love as well. And join the movement to choose love. We are a boots on the ground movement, and we are moving the world towards love. And that's the world that we want to live in, safer and kind. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.